uh, children, and that is a case set for permanency hearing before a final trial on the merits. We're here today via Zoom on August 2nd, 2023. I'm visiting Judge Morris. This is a case out of Kirk County, Texas. As I said, we're appearing by Zoom, and we are being recorded at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and start by asking for announcements, and we'll start with you, Mr. McKeska.
Thank you, Judge. Drake McKeska, attorney for the department. Mr. Tucci.
Alejandra Sertuche, permanency specialist for Belong.
Let's pause just a second. Oh, Zartucci. Okay, yes, I remember you. I just want to make sure I've got everybody's name correctly. Okay, go ahead next.
Ashley Crouch, permanency supervisor with Belong.
Okay.
David Nelson, Casa Guardian ad litem, volunteer.
All right, thank you.
Cecilia Howard on behalf of the child. I do notice that Irene Acosta, who represents the mother in this case, I do not see her on the feed.
I'm right here.
Oh my goodness, there you are. Perfect. Never mind. Sorry.
I know we have quite a few people on this, so but thank you, Ms. Helen. You want to go ahead and announce Ms. Acosta?
Yes, Your Honor. Irene Acosta for the mother, Misty Pearson. Ms. Pearson, can you unmute and announce, please?
It looks like she doesn't have audio.
Okay. Well, I see that she's here and her attorney is also present. So let's see. Let's go to the next person. I believe that is, it says Haley.
Haley Reyes, placement for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then we have Ms. Masuda.
Your Honor, Amy Harding, Hilton Chicago supervisor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Harding. All right, so Mr. McKeska, do you want to go ahead and proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Mr. Tucci, Judge.
And let me just say that I also did review the department report as well as the CASA report prior to this hearing today, and so I'm a little bit familiar with the facts.
And how are you currently employed?
By Belong.
Okay, and are you the permanency specialist assigned to this case?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you give the court an update on how Christian is doing in his current placement?
Christian is doing well. His placement reports that he's doing well. There were some concerns that he might have been having seizures, and they were taking him to get those checked out just so he could be monitored. But he's limited on the medication he can take, so they were just taking blood work from him, and they referred him to a neurologist. And that appointment's been set up for February, was the soonest, I believe, that they could do. But we're trying to see what we can do to move it up sooner. But I believe he just reported to Ms. Hellbrung that he was faking those seizures so that he wouldn't get in trouble for staying up. But other than that, he's been doing well.
Okay. Is his current placement meeting all of his needs?
Yes.
Are you asking that he be, or the court continue him in his current placement?
Yes.
Do you believe that continuation of his current placement is in his best interest?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is he up to date on all of his medical and dental exams outside of the appointments you just described?
Yes, he's up to date on everything.
Okay. Are there any medical or dental concerns other than what you've already testified to?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Is he attending individual therapy?
Yes.
Okay. And how is he doing in therapy?
He's been doing well. I believe he's still kind of, he's not as open and comfortable with the therapist yet, but he's only met him a few times. But he's barely starting to open up on like deeper issues.
Okay. Is he enrolled for school starting later this month?
I believe they've already enrolled him, yes.
With regard to Roland, how's Roland doing his current placement?
Roland is doing well. He's up to date on everything. Haley does really good at communicating with me on how he's doing, and him talking more and him running around and being very energetic and very happy.
Okay. Is his current placement meeting all of his needs?
Yes.
Do you have any concerns for the care that Roland's receiving in his current placement?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you believe that it's in Roland's best interest to continue in his current placement?
Yes,
And are you asking the court to continue him in his placement today?
yes.
Okay. What is the permanency goal for Christian and Roland?
Reunification for Christian, and for Roland, I believe it's PMC with PCA.
Okay. And is that to the current caregiver?
Yes.
Okay. With regard to Ms. Pearson's progress, can you give the court an update on how she is doing in her family plan of service?
I believe she's still engaged in individual counseling with a few missed sessions, but her service providers are reporting that they still have concerns on her understanding the severity of the case and the importance of stability to provide a safe and stable home for her children. And she is also attending services at MHMR, but she has missed several of those as well. Some have been no-shows, some have been rescheduled because she's been sick.
Okay. What services is she currently engaged in?
Individual counseling and MHDD.
Okay. Outside of those two services, did she successfully complete the other services on her family plan of service?
I believe she completed the parenting classes. And I'm spacing out right now. I can't remember what else was on there.
Okay. Did she complete her domestic violence program?
Yes, she did. That was another concern in her individual counseling, that she was not bringing that up and it wasn't being discussed for her to address it.
Okay. And have you addressed that concern with Ms. Pearson?
I believe so. And she stated that her therapist felt it wasn't something that needed to be brought up, or her therapist at the time had stated it wasn't something that needed to be brought up continuously as she was trying to move on from that. So
Okay.
they weren't working on it with that therapist.
Okay. How would you classify Ms. Pearson's overall level of compliance?
I would say she's somewhat in compliance.
Okay. What does Ms. Pearson need to do in order to be considered completely in compliance with their family plan of service?
I would like to see her attend her sessions like accordingly and attend them all, unless of course she is sick, but if she reschedules, for her to attend those as well. And for her to address the actual issues that are at hand during this case pertaining to the safety of her children.
Okay. Is Ms. Pearson attending visits with the children?
Yes, she is.
And how are those visits going?
They've been reported to be going appropriately. I believe Christian at his last visit, excuse me, was trying to talk about stuff regarding the case. And Ms. Pearson did very well at redirecting him to let him know that it couldn't be talked about during the visit, but they were appropriate. She was good with both of the kids.
Okay. With regard to Mr. Moselle, can you give the court an update on how he's doing his family plan of service?
Mr. Moselle, I believe he is not in compliance.
Okay, why is he not in compliance?
I'm unable to get in touch with the prison that he's currently in, so I don't know what services are available to him there, but I have not received any kind of records of services that he's completed while his incarceration.
Okay. Have you sent Mr. Moselle any sort of letters to communicate with him?
Yes, we have.
Okay, and has he responded to those letters?
No.
Okay. With regard to Mr. Reyes, how would you classify his current level of compliance?
I would say he's also not in compliance for the same reasons that I'm unable to identify what services he's completed.
Okay. Have you sent letters to Mr. Reyes?
Yes, and I met with him in person as well.
Okay. And has Mr. Reyes been able to provide you any sort of information with what's available to him in his current facility?
No, he wasn't.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, but before we go on, I see Ms. Harris there. I don't know that you announced Ms. Harris. I don't remember that you did.
Your Honor, Jennifer Harris, attorney for respondent father, Mr. Moselle. He's incarcerated and not present, but I have been in contact with him.
Okay, thank you.
I'm ready.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Ms. Acosta, do you have questions for Ms. Artucci?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Ms. Artucci, what does Ms. Pearson need to do to continue to be in compliance?
I believe, like what I stated to Mr. McKeska, just for her to address the concerns of her stability with her home life to start off, and the concerns with the domestic violence, and the concerns of being able to ensure that there is stable safety in the home for Christian.
And all of these things are being addressed in counseling?
I believe, yes.
Do you get counseling notes from her counselors?
Yes, I do. I've shared some with you. I don't know if I've shared the last two.
When you get the most recent ones, can you please share them with me?
Yes.
Okay, and with regard to her visits, what does Ms. Pearson need to do to increase visits with Christian and Roland Jr.?
If she's more in compliance with her services and she continues to attend the visits accordingly, then we can discuss the increase in visitation.
Okay, are there any staffings scheduled for Ms. Pearson anytime soon?
Not that I know of.
Okay, do you think that it would be beneficial moving forward to schedule a staffing to evaluate her compliance with services and visitation?
I believe it can be beneficial, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
I do not, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Hillrun?
Yes. Ms. Artucci, so the barriers really here for reunification are her addressing the issues in therapy, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and just because Judge Morris may or may not be familiar with the history, Christian was recently removed because of having access, unauthorized access to a man who he reported was abusing him, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. During the last visit with Roland, who's the youngest child, isn't it true that she brought someone with her? She brought a boyfriend, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. What continue to be the barriers with her addressing these concerns? Do you think that there may be other services that we can potentially look at, since therapy just does not seem to be doing much to address some of these concerns?
I'm sure there might be some resources, but I think the main issue here is that she is not consecutively attending her services. That's why it's not having that effect on her.
And she's had multiple therapists throughout this case, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And the permanency plan at this point, is it a relative or non-relative adoption for both children?
Yes, I think I stated wrong at the beginning. I said reunification, but I think it's changed.
Okay. Do you think that mediation would be beneficial in this case?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. All right. Anyone else have any questions for Ms. Sartucci?
No, Your Honor.
And I do want to
Your Honor.
we're kind of behind, but I do think this is important. And I know I haven't been the regular judge on this, but I did read the report, and what I'm reading in the report is a little more concerned than what I'm hearing from Ms. Sartucci testifying about, because the reports, including the CASA reports, indicate that Ms. Pearson is not in compliance and that the child was placed with her and then had to be removed. So to me, that's indicates a lot of concern. So what are your thoughts? Because I think you kind of went there, Ms. Hillrun. What are your concerns at this point?
My concerns with Ms. Pearson are that she doesn't seem to really have any insight into how her relationships and behavior. She got pregnant during the reunification or placement with Christian. She was taking him over to a man that has a history of domestic violence. My biggest concern with mom is putting her needs, the child's needs, above her own. Even knowing the concerns about her relationships and inappropriately allowing those people to be around the children, she brought a boyfriend to the last visit with her youngest son. So I just don't know what to do at this point. I'm just very concerned that, Ms. Pearson just does not understand the problems here with her inability to focus on the needs of her children.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm getting from the report as well. And Mr. Nelson, do you have anything you want to add? I did read the CASA report as well. I know that CASA expressed a lot of those same concerns, and in fact, recommended fewer visits at this time, I believe. So what do you want to add from CASA's perspective?
Well, our concern has been basically the same as what Cecilia said. It's just things that, I think Misty has been given many chances to do things and just hasn't done them. This was not the first time this case was brought. This case was brought 2 years ago. I wasn't around at the time, but it was brought up again upon the harm that Roland suffered. And Misty was given another chance when she was able to take in Christian, and that didn't seem to work either. So it's just really concerning to me that she's been given several chances and has not performed. And I'm just very questionable as to whether to give her another chance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nelson. Well, I agree. I think someone mentioned that this case needs to be referred to mediation. I am going to order the case to mediation. As of right now, we're set for a final trial on November 1st at 9:30. So I think it's really important that you all get a date within 30 days, I would say, of today's date, at least have something scheduled as soon as possible so that we can address these issues. I think the issues of the therapy, I agree with what Ms. Hellrung said, that I'm not sure what other services might be available, but it's important, Ms. Pearson, to be consistent. If it's therapy and MHDD services are not going to help you unless you're consistently keeping those appointments and being honest with your providers and really trying to tackle those problems. And certainly the issue of bringing inappropriate people around the children is a huge concern. So at this time, I'm going to find that Ms. Pearson is not in compliance with the plan of service. Those services need to continue. I know she's successfully completed some services, but the standard is that there's substantial compliance, and I don't think we can say that at this point, since there are still concerns that warranted having the child have to be removed from the attempted reunification. I will find that neither of the fathers is in compliance with the plan of service at this time. I will continue both children in their current placements and find that both placements are in the best interest of the children and are meeting their needs. Obviously, Christian's placement is not really a long-term placement, but it sounds like he also has some issues that maybe can best be addressed by his current placement. And then hopefully he can be placed in a more or least restrictive type setting at some point soon. So are there any other issues that I have? Oh, I know the visitation. What are the visits now?
I believe they're weekly, Your Honor. My client, Christian, even though I have concerns about mom's compliance, she is consistent with visits. At least where Christian is concerned, I would ask that they continue. I saw him last night, and the only thing he wanted me to tell this court is that he wants to give his mom a hug and kiss. So I'm not opposed to limiting or pulling back some of the visits for Roland. I did observe a visit. It was not really, there's not much of a bond there, to be candid. But with Christian, he really needs his mom, and he really needs to have that family connection. So I just do not want to pull those visits back because, I think this has been very traumatic for him. And despite mom's inability to really understand that connection, I still don't want to cut it off because he's in an emergency shelter. He's struggling to try to get through.
Thank you. And given his age and his desires, I do think that it's important that to honor that. And it's probably easier to set up a visit, I guess, at his current placement. So I would continue those visits as they are. And then what does CASA have a specific recommendation in terms of Roland's visitation?
I don't have any particular recommendation. I agree with Cecilia that the bond with Roland and Misty is not really that close now. His bond is really with Haley. I mean, that's, and Haley's husband. So I don't know that, you know, that those visits are going to wreak anything in the future, but, you know, I definitely would not increase them. And I would put restrictions on it, that there will not be any person accompanying Misty at those visits. And I think if that continues, I think the visit will be terminated.
Okay. I think
Your
between
Honor.
now and when you all
Your
are going
Honor.
to mediation.
Your
Go
Honor,
ahead.
if I may.
Before,
This is Irina.
Irene, I'm so sorry. I just got another hearing at 9:30 that I'm about 15 minutes late for. Can I just log off real quick?
Yes, yes. And
Thank
I,
you.
just so you know, I'm not gonna, I think I'm gonna leave the visits as they are right now since it's coming up for final trial. So you may be.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Since, as I said, since we're so close to the trial date and the case has been ordered to mediation, I think I'll just continue the visits as they are, but I will order that no one else is to accompany the mother to those visits unless you have prior approval from the department. Say if it's a grandmother or something on a particular occasion, that might be appropriate, but otherwise the visit should just be between the mother and the child. All right, anything further? And we're about 15 minutes late for our next hearing too. So if there's nothing further, then we'll stand in recess and you all be sure and communicate with each other about the mediation. It's really important, Ms. Pearson and Ms. Reyes too, that you all be available for mediation so that we can really address those issues. So anything from anybody else real quick? Hopefully we'll. All right, then thank you all. If nothing further, then all parties may be excused.
And Your Honor, this is an out-of-county adoption. It's actually one of Judge Mabry's cases out of Burnett County, but the adoptive parents live in Kirk County.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ms. Fuller. Are you the attorney for the adoptive parents?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And let's start with announcements and we'll start with you, Ms. Fuller.
Deborah Fuller, I'm the attorney for the adoptive parents.
And Mr. and Mrs. Cates, will you all unmute for a minute and tell me your names, please?
Stephen Cates. Shelly Cates.
Shelly Cates.
And who's the little guy with you? Ooh.
I'm good.
Good. Do you know what you're doing here today?
See your face?
Yeah.
You got a nice slobber.
Slobber.
It sounds slobber from a binky.
No.
Okay, let's see who else is here. I think we have some people from Belong.
And then it's gonna come like.
Well, the caseworker's here, Your Honor. Tiffany.
Okay, would you, caseworker, state your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Tiffany Slab. I was a CP, Child Protective Services.
And CASA.
I'm Bobby Bittler. I'm the program director for CASA.
Okay.
And I'm Amy Masuda. I was the previous CASA. I'm here for anything that I can offer and just to show support for the family.
Okay, thank you.
And Your Honor, my name is Natalie Fowler, and I'm the attorney ad litem for Cash. Unfortunately, I had several conflicts today, but I did sign the order, and I do wholeheartedly approve. And I'm going to be silent and on mute. I just wanted to be able to watch this because it's been a long time coming.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that you were able to pop on. And it looks like we have the assistant county attorney from Burnett County.
Yes, Judge. I'm Agata Vanna. I was Cash's attorney ad litem at the beginning, and then now I represent the department, so I'm just here to support them.
Oh, so you're getting to see it from all angles today. That's just great. Well, anybody who is going to or may testify that's not a lawyer, Mr. and Mrs. Cates, you guys for sure, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that testimony given in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to let Ms. Fuller ask you guys a few questions, Mr. and Ms. Cates. So go ahead, Ms. Fuller.
I'm going to call the caseworker first.
Okay, go ahead.
Could you please state your full name?
It's Tiffany Slab.
And you're the adoption worker in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And all the parental rights have previously been terminated?
Yes, ma'am.
And all the necessary home studies, background checks, everything required to finalize the adoption today have been completed?
Yes, ma'am.
Does the department sign their waiver and consent?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you feel this is in Cash's best interest?
Most definitely the best interest for the child.
Do you have any concerns at all in regards to this adoption today?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, I have no further questions of Ms. Slab. And Ms. Fowler said she wasn't going to ask any questions.
Okay, go ahead and call your next witness, Ms. Fuller.
And I'd like to call the Shelly Cates. And how, and are you related to Cash?
Well, grandmother, yes, not paternal, but yes.
And you're a licensed foster home, correct?
Correct, yes.
You finished all the home studies, background checks, everything necessary to finalize the adoption today?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you changing Cash's name?
Yes, we're changing his last name.
So, and do you understand when the court grants this adoption today, you become his mother forever?
Yes.
And that's what you're asking the court to do?
Yes, ma'am.
I have no further questions of Ms. Cates, Your Honor. I'd like to call Mr. Cates.
All right.
And you heard the questions that I asked your wife. Do you understand it when the court grants this adoption today, you become his father forever?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you think that's in his best interest?
Yes, ma'am.
And in the best interest of your family?
Yes, ma'am.
I have no further questions of Mr. Cates. I'd like to call Ms. Masuda because she was the first CASA volunteer, and I know she's very involved.
Hi,
Could you please state your full name?
Sure, it's Amy Masuda.
And how are you involved in this case, Ms. Masuda?
I was the CASA supervisor on the case since July of 2021.
And do you feel this is in the best interest of Cash?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you have
He's
any
been through a lot.
Do you have any concerns at all?
None at all.
I have no further questions of Ms. Masuda, Your Honor. I'd like to call Mr. Fiddler.
All right, go ahead.
And Mr. Fiddler, how are you involved in this case?
I'm the program director here at CASA, and I have watched Amy and others put much work into it, and I trust her judgment in this matter.
And so CASA is fully behind this adoption today.
Absolutely.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right. Anybody have anything to add at this point? It looks like the state of Texas has approved this adoption, so that's good too. All right. So at this time, the court finds that this court has jurisdiction over this cause and that the child named is eligible for adoption. The court will also find that it's in the best interest of the child for the adoption to be granted. And I think that everybody in this case is in full agreement with that. I'm going to also order the name change. Okay, we're good to go then. All right, then the court will. Yes.
I'm not sure if we really should, but I do know that when they did the birth certificate originally, they missed. I don't know if that's easy to change, but if it is,
well, it's spelled the way I gave it to you on the order. I don't know if I guess you'd have to talk to Ms. Fuller about whether we want to change that. You're saying you might want to spell it W-A-Y?
correct. I mean, if it's easy, if not, it's not going to matter.
Amy. Here's Amy.
What do you think, Ms. Fuller?
We could make a verbal
Amy.
correction to the order, and if you want to initial it and change it to W.
Okay, I'm not sure how to do it on electronically, but we.
Oh, you have it.
I have it on my
That's right.
phone, so, but I can make a verbal order that the name should actually be spelled C-A-S-A. I guess we can make a notation somehow before that gets filed.
Deborah, if you want, I can make the change and resend it to Judge Morris and she can sign it that way.
Okay,
That'd be
yeah,
easier.
that would work. Thank you, Ms. Greenlee, that would work. Okay, we want to make sure that everybody's happy and that we got it like the way we want it. So that now's the time to do it. And a new birth certificate will also be issued for him. So Ms. Fuller can help make sure that gets done too. So, all right. Well, thank you, Ms. Greenlee. I appreciate that. All right. With that caveat, then we'll get that all fixed. And I appreciate everybody's efforts on this case, and I'm glad I got to be a part of something that's exciting today. So with that, I will grant the adoption in all aspects, including the main name change. So congratulations.
Yay.
Yay, you. All right. If nothing further, all parties will be excused. And if you have any questions about the order or anything, go to Ms. Fuller. She will know what to do and she can take care of that for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Nice to see y'all again.
Everybody.
Haven't seen the people from Burnett in a while.
Yeah, really. Okay.
Drake McCusker, attorney. for the
Thank you.
department.
All
Ms.
parties
Harrison
may be
Bader.
excused.
Thank you. Theater permanency specialist with Belong.
Wait, so who said that?
I did.
Okay, I've seen. I'm just trying to trace you on the. Okay, Ms. Harrison Bader. Okay, thank you.
Ashley Crouch, Permanency Supervisor with Belong.
Amy Harding and Dahlia Franco,
Jennifer Harris, attorney.
Country Casa.
Okay, what is your volunteer's name, Ms. Harding?
Dahlia Franco.
Franco? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Irene Acosta for the
Jennifer
father.
Harris, attorney ad litem for the children.
Okay, I got Ms. Harris and Ms. Acosta at the same time there. Ms. Fuller, why don't you go ahead?
Your Honor, Deborah Fuller, I'm standing in for Richard Saldivar, who represents the child Quentin.
Okay.
Alana Pearsall, attorney for the mother, who is also present.
Would you state your name, ma'am, Ms. Pearsall? I mean, Ms. Padilla? Ms.
Jessica Padilla, mom.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see. And we have a Ms. Juarez. Would you unmute yourself and please state your name for the record?
Rosie Juarez, grandmother.
Okay, and do you have placement of the children, or what's your role in this case?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, thank you. And then I see we have Ms. Greenwald is our court reporter. All right, Mr. McKeska, do you want to present your motion first?
Yes, Judge. And Judge, just for some background, we did attend mediation on June 23rd, 2023, where we did reach an agreement where we would where everyone agreed that we'd be seeking the extension under 263-401B. And so we filed the motion late. We did file it yesterday, but it was agreed to previously during mediation at the end of June. So in support of the motion, Judge, I'd like to call Ms. Harrison Bader.
Okay, go ahead. She's been sworn, so you may ask her questions.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Harrison Bader, can you give us an update on how Ms. Padilla is doing in her family plan of service?
Ms. Padilla is continuing with individual therapy, and she's also engaging in family therapy with each of the children. And she is also now engaged in family therapy with Ms. Juarez, who is her mother. And at this point, those really are the main things that are left on her family plan of service. We did ask for a domestic violence class to be completed. However, service providers were unavailable to provide those services. So those are things that she has been addressing in therapy.
Okay, and have you received any sort of feedback from the therapist that's providing these services?
We have received some notes from the therapist that Jessica is seeing for individual therapy.
Okay, have you received any sort of feedback from the therapist that's providing the family therapy?
So the oldest child on the case is seeing a different therapist than the two younger children. She is the only one that I have gotten recent notes from, just due to the fact that we're at the very beginning of the month. And generally that's when notes are sent out. But her feedback is very, very positive. She has, said that Jessica and Kylie have been doing wonderful in their sessions. They have been able to talk openly about the situation that happened. And then as far as her therapy with Ms. Juarez, that is going well also.
Okay. And one of the things that have been discussed previously was Ms. Padilla moving back onto the property owned by Ms. Juarez and her husband, and being on the same property where the children are currently placed. Has that move been completed?
Yes, it has.
Okay, and how are things going with that?
Things are going very well. The children are very happy that they get to see their mother every day. They get to spend a lot of time with her. Quentin has, from the very beginning of the case, he's been the one that has, really wanted to be with his mother. So he is very happy getting to see her every day. He is wanting to have some overnight visits with her. He wants to just have her there all the time. But as far as I know, from talking with Ms. Juarez and the children, that situation is working out very well for them at this time.
Okay. And what sort of visitation is Ms. Padilla getting at this time?
So as of right now, it is unrestricted supervised visit with Ms. Juarez as the supervisor. And then we have 8 hours per week of unsupervised time. I did speak with Ms. Juarez about the unsupervised time, which, because they are living together, there really isn't a whole lot of reason for her to have unsupervised time, just like going out for the day. So she's been doing, just typical mom things, taking the kids with her to the grocery store, which is, like an hour and a half of unsupervised time, at a time.
Okay. And do you have any concerns for any of those visits at this point?
I don't. I've spoken with all of the children. They feel that they're appropriate. They feel safe with their mother. They enjoy the time that they spend with her.
Okay. And how are we progressing towards those overnight visits that Quentin requested?
So it is something that has to be discussed with our director prior to us being able to approve those. We do have a little bit of a barrier because mom is living on the back house on the property, which is occupied by other people as well at this time, family members, of course. But there isn't really a place for Quentin to sleep there. So one thing that I discussed with Ms. Juarez was potentially having mom go up to her house and like sleep on the couch a couple nights a week, something to that effect, but we haven't really been able to work out all of the details quite yet.
Okay, but it's not something the department or belonging is opposed to at this time.
No.
Okay. I know we touched on mom's progress in individual therapy. Has she successfully completed all of her other services?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the permanency goal for this case?
Family reunification.
Okay, so do you believe that the extension that the parties agreed to seek in this case is necessary at this time to be able to achieve that permanency goal?
I do.
Okay. With regard to Mr. Padilla, can you just give the court a quick update on how he's doing his services?
I do not have any update. I have been unable to get in contact with him for the past couple months. He did not attend mediation. I believe his attorney was trying to get in touch with him at that time, as was myself. I have had no response from Mr. Padilla.
Okay. And what services, just briefly, are on his family plan?
Parenting, therapy, a psychosocial or a psychological. I do apologize. I don't remember exactly which one was on the plan. But those were the main things. Prior to us losing contact, he had gotten started in therapy and parenting, but I don't know if he continued in those or completed any of those.
Pass it, Judge.
Right. So just go down the list here. Ms. Harris, do you have any questions for
Yes,
Ms.
Judge. I can go first, last. It doesn't matter.
You don't have any questions? I'm sorry, I think I was talking over you.
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Ma'am, you said the family reunification, correct?
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out there. I didn't hear that.
You testified that the goal is family reunification, correct?
Correct.
Do you anticipate that based on the allegations and some of the resulting behaviors that although the goal is reunification, one or two of the children may be looking at a different living situation than Quentin?
No, not at this time. Previously, we did have concerns for Kylie and Maddie potentially not wanting to return to their mother. In my most recent visit, they both expressed that they did want to return to her. I did have a conversation with them that if that changes, that's okay, and that they just need to communicate that to me, to you, to CASA, so that way we can plan accordingly.
And so based upon safety and perpetration allegations and all the considerations in the case, okay, you think it would be appropriate for all three children to be living together?
I do.
No further questions, Judge.
All right, Ms. Pearsall?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. So the department today is seeking a 6 months extension, correct?
That is correct, yes.
But the department doesn't actually anticipate their reunification to take this long, do you?
That is our hope, yes.
Okay, your hope is it'll progress faster.
Yes, that is our hope for this case.
Welcome to Zoom. So I understand since you work for a government agency, there are certain kind of bureaucratic loops you have to jump through, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat that?
Yes, I said, I understand since you work for a government agency, there are certain loops, like bureaucratic loops you have to jump through, correct?
Could you describe what those bureaucratic would be?
Sure, having somebody else approve overnight visit.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. However, you believe they are in these children's best interest and should be started, correct?
I do believe that it would be beneficial.
Okay. So are you asking the court today to authorize overnight visit?
I don't know that I'm out of place to really ask that, as like I said before, we do have some items that we just have to figure out. I'm not opposed to that being a discussion, but we would have to figure out the logistics.
Okay. And one of the things long-term that mother is requesting is to actually to move into the grandparents' home, correct?
That has not been my impression. I believe that was something that was discussed at one point, and it was decided that it wouldn't really be appropriate due to the size of the home. So it wouldn't really be appropriate for mom, 3 children, as well as Ms. Juarez and her husband to reside in the home together.
Okay. Well, now mom is living on the property and not in the home because that was something the department wanted as a step. That's not something the family wanted, correct?
That was something that was suggested and discussed with Ms. Juarez. That was not something that we said needed to happen.
Okay. So do you have any opposition to Ms. Padilla moving into Ms. Juarez's home if it's okay with Ms. Juarez and her husband?
I still don't think that I would be in agreement with that. There isn't a room that Ms. Padilla would be able to sleep in. I think it is something we could potentially work out for, a couple nights a week that she sleep on the couch there, but the home is just not sized adequately enough to support that many people in a home, particularly in one where we do need to keep the children in their own spaces.
Okay, so is your preference then that Ms. Padilla have overnights or live with the children in her own home away from the Juarez's?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last word that you said.
So is the department preference that Ms. Padilla obtain different housing away from the Juarez's? Was the department?
So I have discussed with Ms. Padilla and Ms. Juarez what options might be, because the home on the back of the property that Ms. Padilla moved into is occupied by 3 other family members. I did ask if there was a possibility for them finding other housing, so that would open up that house. However, we can't dictate whether or not that is something that happens. But as far as the living situation goes right now, yes, I think it would be most appropriate for Ms. Padilla to have her own residence prior to being able to have, full overnights or even having the children returned to her.
Okay, so if Ms. Padilla obtains her own residence, do you still believe it'd be in the children's best interest to have overnights with her?
Yes.
Now the questions.
Ms. Acosta, do you have any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. When was the last time you had contact with Mr. Padilla?
The last time I had contact with Mr. Padilla was June 19th. That was the last time I had any sort of actual communication with him that resulted in a response from him.
Okay, and have you attempted contact with him since then?
Yes, I have.
And what is your impression of why you're unable to get in touch with him?
So I could give my opinion in regards to that. I believe that Mr. Padilla has not really been a part of the children's lives. I don't think he really had any intention of trying to become a part of their lives. And the children honestly weren't very interested in building a relationship with him either. After a few months after the removal, they really weren't interested in virtual visits with him. So from my perspective, I think he just didn't think it was really worth it for him to.
So the phone number that you have for him, does it still work?
I don't think so. It's been a couple weeks since I attempted an actual phone call, but it is definitely a possibility. He has had his number cut off previously.
Okay, so the last time you tried to call him on his phone, was it working?
Yes.
Okay, but now you're saying that his phone might not be working?
I'm saying that it is a possibility that his phone is not working.
Okay, and have you continued to try any other methods of contacting Mr. Padilla?
I have not.
Okay, do you have an email address for him?
I may have an email address for him.
Okay, and if you have an email address for him, do you think that it would be prudent to try to contact him that way if you believe that his phone number has been changed?
Yes.
Okay, moving forward, will you attempt to contact Mr. Padilla to follow up on his services?
Yes, immediately after this, I can look and see if I have that email address. And if I do, I will send an email.
Okay, with regard to the services that you mentioned that he had begun where he is located, did he ever send you any confirmation of who his counselor was or what classes he was taking?
He did send me information regarding his therapist, and I have attempted to reach out to her as well. I have not gotten any feedback. I've attempted via email as well as a phone number.
Okay, and visits with the children are only if the children request it. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and that's to remain in place during this case, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, has that been revisited with the children, whether or not they would like to visit with their father?
Yes, I talk with them about that every time that I visit with them. And the response that I've gotten every single time is that they're just not interested in that communication.
Okay, do you think that therapy would help build a relationship between the father and the children if they want it?
If that is something that they wanted, I would be in agreement with that.
Do you think it's important for children to have their father in their lives?
I do.
Okay. And so if Mr. Padilla were to get back in touch with you, do you think it would be a good recommendation for family therapy if recommended by their therapist?
Yes, I could be on board with that.
Okay. And during this extension, the Department Belong is going to continue offering services to Mr. Padilla, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, Ms. Fuller.
Ms. Bader, in regards to the staffing, did you staff the case for the mother moving into the grandmother's house?
Yes, we did.
And you're saying that there's absolutely not enough room in that house for her to be in that house?
Yes, that is my impression.
Okay. In regards to Quentin, he really wants to be with his mother now, correct?
Yes, he does.
So you mentioned that you have to have a staffing, and you're actually not a government agency, you're a private agency. So when would you have this staffing?
I could reach out to my program director today to see when she's available.
So if there's room in the back of the house where Miss Padilla is staying, could Quentin be able to at least stay overnight there with his mother, since he is the one that is requesting the contact the most, is my understanding?
Yes, I will say that that is something that I've asked of Ms. Juarez. I haven't had a super in-depth conversation with Ms. Padilla about that, but my understanding is that there isn't an appropriate place, but if that is something we could work out, then yes.
And have you been to both properties to determine what the likelihood is of reunification on either property?
I have been to the, I have been in both homes. I have not been in the back home since Ms. Padilla moved in there.
And so would you let Mr. Saldivar know as soon as you can staff this so Quentin could have extra contact with his mother?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, so it sounds like, and I want to hear from the ad litem and from CASA as well in just a second, but it sounds like that you all went to mediation, you agreed to an extension. It seems to me like the reason for requesting an extension is that the plan continues to be family reunification with the mother. There are a few services and other things that need to be accomplished in order to make that happen. And it sounds to me that you all want to be very careful in making a very deliberate and organized transition to be able to ensure that reunification is successful. And if I'm misspeaking, then you all can correct me, but Ms. on behalf of Mr. Saldivar,
Judge,
yes.
I apologize. Just to clarify, my client and I wasn't able to reach my client for mediation, so the agreement is not between my client, Mr. Padilla, and Belong and the mother. I was unable to have a position at mediation, so we didn't enter into the agreement.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And Ms. Harris is maybe in the same boat. Was your client in agreement, Ms. Harris?
I represent the two girls.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So we've got two, Mr. Saldivar represents the oldest child, correct?
No, I think he's the youngest child.
Okay.
Correct? I think Quentin is
Mr.
the youngest.
Saldivar represents Quentin, the youngest boy.
Yes.
And then I represent the two girls.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. So you all were obviously were a part of that. So let me ask you then, Ms. Well, I started with Ms. Fuller. What does Mr. Saldivar have a recommendation in regard, and that's Quentin, is you're talking about the youngest boy?
Yes, Your Honor. He represents Quentin. He understands that he's doing really well, but he wants contact with his mother. He wants to go home with his mother, spend the night with his mother. So it doesn't sound like there's any viable plan for that at this time. I mean, if they can't go to the one house because it's too small, then they can't go to the other. So something needs to be tweaked here so this child can have the contact that he wants with his mother. And he would request that there be a staffing immediately to determine what can be done so the mother can have more contact with Quentin. And again, he only represents Quentin.
Okay, thank you all for clarifying that. I was confused about that. So Ms. Harris, what about your recommendations on behalf of the two girls?
Your Honor, everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. I do not deny that whatsoever. And obviously some progress has been made. You know, the girls are a lot open about looking at their living arrangements. However, this case has very, very serious sexual abuse allegations, and these things aren't fixed with, you know, a few months of counseling and a couple months of family counseling. This is stuff that's going to be long-term, and this is generational, this sexual abuse in the family. So, you know, we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that these girls are going to be protected in the future, I believe. I want to achieve what they want. I want them to be able to live with their mother if they want, but especially Kylie, I also have to think about protecting her. And I don't know that it's safe for her to be living in small quarters.
Or you just froze, Ms. Harris. All right, Ms. Harris is frozen up, and I'm sure we'll get her back in just a minute. But Ms. Harding, you or Ms. Franco, what are y'all's, because obviously you represent or guardian ad litem for all three children. And I'm assuming you all were part of the agreement for the extension. It does sound clearly like there needs to be more time in order to work this case with a lot of really serious issues. So what can you tell me? Either one of you wants to
Agreed.
respond.
Yes, we are in agreement with the extension.
The children are doing very well with the placement. Kylie has expressed that she's really enjoyed therapy, and it has been very beneficial. And Quentin continues to cry out for his mom at night daily. So for sure, he's wanting to get back with his mom. I do have one concern. I learned that mom introduced the children to a male best friend over the 4th of July weekend. So I do believe that at this time, mom should not be introducing any male individuals to the children.
Okay. And those are all really important issues, and that's why we have these graduated plans, so to say. It's not just, government hoops that we have to go through. We want to make sure that children are safe, and obviously these children have different issues which may be in conflict with each other, which is why there's two different attorney ad litem on the case. And so I do think it's important that there not be, at least at this time, new men introduced into the girls' lives as long as there has been a history of sexual abuse, and that's a concern. I do think it sounds to me that what I'm hearing everybody say, that Quentin may be in a different position than the other two children, and that his needs and desires to be with his mother might be able to be expedited. And I would order that the department staff that issue or belong staff that issue and see if there's something that you can come up with. I'm glad to hear it sounds like the mother is having almost unlimited contact with the children. So that's a really positive thing. It seems like Quentin wants more than that. And so the other thing I'm hearing is it sounds like maybe Ms. Juarez and Ms. Padilla are communicating well and working well together. And I think that's really important too, because these children need their mother, they need their grandmother, and they need all the adults in their lives. And I'm talking to you, Ms. Juarez and Ms. Padilla, to make sure they're protected. And it's your job to make sure that nobody is intruding on their personal space, on their bodies. And that means men, women, relatives, non-relatives, anybody. And so, and as Ms. Harris said, these issues are not easily remedied, even with extensive therapy. I'm glad it sounds like Kylie's really benefiting from therapy, and I'm glad to hear that. But that's going to be a long-term process, and you all are going to have to be very watchful as these children get older too, because they're going to develop and they're going to change their attitudes about how they feel about having close personal relationships with people in general. So I just throw that out to say that I do appreciate it. Sounds like everybody in this case is working really hard to come up with some creative solutions. They're not always easy to identify, especially if you live in a small house, or you have limited financial means. It may make things more challenging. And so maybe you all have to come up with some creative ideas about how it would be possible for maybe Quentin at least to have some overnight visits, or possibly even reside with his mother at this point. I will find that there is, for all these reasons, that an extension is warranted, and will grant the extension. It sounds like everyone is in agreement other than the father, Mr. Padilla, who really hasn't, it sounds like, been involved much. And I do think it's up to him to contact the caseworker if he is interested in having contact with his children, and that would have to be considered very carefully and done in a therapeutic setting, if that is possible at all. So we'll grant the extension, we'll continue the children in their current placements, but I would encourage you all to continue this access between the children and the mother. It sounds like the supervision provided by the grandmother is working okay. And as I said, order you all to staff this to consider whether there are options that could be looked at. Our new dismissal date will be March 30th, 2024. The next permanency hearing will be November 1st at 11 o'clock. And the trial date would be January the 10th at 1:30. I'm hoping that, before you come back, and that's the other thing, I'll authorize that you all can have more increased visits or even unsupervised visits if that's something that all parties agree to, including the attorneys ad litem and the guardian ad litem. So you wouldn't need to come back to court. You would not need to come back to court in order to increase those visitations prior to the next hearing in November. And I would hope that maybe you all can come up with some plans for that. I do think in light of the allegations in this case, it's really important that the children's wishes and desires be considered very carefully, which we always like to do. But I think that if they're feeling uncomfortable with certain things, then that needs to be seriously considered. So, all right. Are there any other issues that we need to address at this time that we haven't covered? I think we've covered a lot, and I think that's good. And it sounds like you all have a plan going forward, and that's probably the best thing we can do is have a plan and try to implement that. Ms. Padilla, do you have any questions? You understand all the issues and concerns?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. Ms. Juarez, do you have anything you want to add? I think she said no, she's on mute, but anything from anybody else? Okay, thank you, Ms. Juarez. And again, I applaud you all for working together well. I think that's really important.
Judge, the only thing that I'd ask is if you could make the findings regarding the parents' compliance. I think that's one thing maybe we'd miss for a permanency hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKeska. I will find that the mother is in compliance with the plan of service on this case. And as I said, I think it's just a matter of the services need to be continued, and you need to keep doing what you're doing, Ms. Padilla, and that seems to be doing well. I will find that Mr. Padilla is not in compliance with the plan of service at this time, and that it is in the best interest of the children to continue in their current place. This is a court-ordered services case, and we're here to talk about the compliance with those services. So let's go ahead and have announcements. We'll start with Mr. McKeska.
Morning, Judge Drake McKeska, attorney for the department.
Carol McKetta, family-based supervisor.
Jennifer Harris, attorney for Miss Earhart, who is present. We're ready. Miss Earhart, can you please unmute and announce your name?
Rowan Earhart, present and ready.
Deborah Fuller, attorney for Justin Lee. Mr. Lee, could you please announce?
Justin Lee, present and ready.
Cecilia Harung, attorney ad litem for the child.
Amy Harding, CASA supervisor.
Dana Berlin, Hill Country CASA, guardian ad litem for the child.
Nice to see you, Miss Berlin. Been a while.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And let's see. Do we have let me get back to you, Ms. McKetta. Do you know who's going to be testifying on behalf of the department?
Hi, Judge. Yes, it's going to be Maria Salinas. She goes by Terry. I see that she's on. If she can unmute and announce.
Your name is Salinas? Yes, Maria Salinas, family based.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Salinas, can you please state your name for the record?
Maria Salinas.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm family-based caseworker.
Okay, are you the caseworker that's assigned to Ms. Earhart and Mr. Lee?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you give the court an update on how Ms. Earhart is doing in her family plan of service?
She is compliant. She has individual counseling with the counselor, Lucia Cobb. She is attending her sessions with MHCD and has provided medication by them, which she is taking. She is also doing in-home parenting. I think someone will report on that. I think that is it. But yeah, she's compliant. She allows me in the home weekly. Yeah. So Rowan's doing everything we've asked her.
Okay. How is Mr. Lee doing his family plan?
So Mr. Lee was asked to do basically the same thing Ms. Earhart is. However, he was scheduled for a psychological on the, I believe it was the 18th. He apparently did not do that because he was claiming there was something with his phone services. I do not know if he's rescheduled that. To my knowledge, he has not. We also referred him to the same counselor as Ms. Earhart. He did an intake on the 24th, had a scheduled visit on the 8th, did not attend. And my understanding is that he is working and living in Marble Falls at this time. So he is engaged with MHTD also and is taking his prescribed medication and taking the medication. But the rest of the services he's not been compliant with.
Okay, so how would you classify his overall level of compliance?
He's working on it. He's partially compliant.
Okay. And will you assist Mr. Lee in setting up or rescheduling that psychological evaluation and rescheduling his individual therapy session?
Yes, I absolutely will do that.
Okay. How's Onyx doing with his parents?
Onyx is doing great. We just went to a doctor's appointment with his gastrologist. He's doing great. He's gaining weight. He's growing. He seems to be doing good. The doctor had no concerns.
Okay. Do you think that the department needs to continue to offer the services to the parents at this time?
Yes, I do.
And are you asking the court to continue this case under the Texas Families First pilot program?
Yes.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, let's see. Ms. Harris? That's okay.
Is there anything else that you want Miss Earhart to do that she has not already begun?
No.
No further questions, Judge.
Okay. Ms. Fuller?
Ms. Salinas, in regards to Mr. Lee, how soon can you assist him with the psych eval and the counseling? Do you have to do additional referrals?
No, there's no additional referrals. I can call the psychological place to see if they can give me an appointment. And the intake, it's literally just calling her, getting a new appointment with Lucia Cobb. I'm sorry, he's completed the intake. He just needs a new session, and I can help him do that.
Okay. And do you have any concerns about the child being in the home with them, even though my client has moved out temporarily?
No.
Thank you. Pass it.
Is Mr. Lee the father of the child?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Judge.
Okay. I just wasn't clear on that. Okay. Let's see. Ms. Hellrung, do you have questions for Ms. Salinas?
I do. We just had a family group conference within the last couple of weeks, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And during that family group conference, it was pretty much determined that the parents were struggling trying to get everything organized. And we came up with a plan to do the virtual counseling for both parents with Lucia Cobb, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how long they have been re-referred with Lucia?
Since the time that we did that group conference, those referrals were made right away. And like I said, Rowan's already engaged in seeing her weekly. It's just us getting Justin engaged.
Got it. Is there an ongoing concern with the parents being alone with the child? And can you speak to the need for continued 24/7 supervision?
The reason that we've kept that is because I know that Rowan was having trouble sleeping. She wasn't getting enough sleep. And so she gets help with the person that supervises them. From my understanding right now, their medication has changed and she is getting more sleep now. And that was the same, I believe, for Justin. Now Justin's out of the home, but it's just Rowan. And so that's why we've continued her supervision, her 24-hour supervision.
Would it be appropriate at this time to step back that supervision to maybe at night, making sure that they're in the home, but not having the 24/7?
Yes, that is something that I can discuss with my supervisor. Yes.
Okay.
Let me interrupt you just a minute. Who's providing this 24-hour supervision?
They are, could you please answer that? I am sorry.
I'm
I'm not
sorry.
sure. She,
They're friends of the family,
yeah,
friends
they're-
of the parents
I
that live in the
didn't
home with them.
hear that because people were talking.
Okay, there's friends of the family that live in the home with.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Miss Salinas, sorry about that, Judge. Ms. Salinas, do you, are you aware that they, at least one of the friends has ongoing medical appointments? And it's difficult for her to do those appointments without taking mom and the baby with them?
Rowan has not brought up those concerns to me. However, recently when I took her to her appointment, she did tell me that they would be going back to San Antonio with her friend the very next day. But she has not brought those concerns to me. We could definitely look at that.
Okay. Now, this case also had a drug component. Have the parents been drug tested?
Yes, they were drug tested last month and they were negative. However, they both admitted to using marijuana the month before.
Okay. So they've only gotten one negative drug test?
No, they've had several actually.
Okay. Is that several since they admitted or one since they've admitted they used?
One since they've admitted to it once a month.
Okay. Do you have any safety concerns for Onyx if the parents are not supervised 24/7?
Other than they admitted using the marijuana, so yes, because normally what we do is we like for them to be negative for at least a couple of months minimum before we can lift that safety plan.
Okay. All right. And Onyx is gaining weight and his gastrointestinal issues are being resolved at this point, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, so do we, I guess, Ms. Hellrung, do you have any recommendations going forward?
Your Honor, I went to go visit yesterday. The home is appropriate. The parents are very engaged with the child. It was relayed to me by mom that the couple that is supervising 24/7, one of them has a number of medical appointments. I believe the other one works. I think it is just very cumbersome because Mr. Lee is not at the home. He just got his license and is working in Marble Falls as an electrician. So what I would recommend is a review of the safety plan and maybe just ensuring that the safety plan is in place overnight and during the day, if there are appointments, that the department be notified that these are appointments, and for the period of time, as long as there's communication, that Ms. Harahart be able to supervise alone for a few hours during the day if there are appointments. I just see a lot of problem with dragging this child to every medical appointment of the safety plan. I think, I'm sorry, somebody's speaking.
I'm just nodding. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. But no, I do think everything is going well. I do know my biggest concern in this case was the mental health of the parents. We had a pretty long family group conference, and it was determined that Ms. Earhart had multiple therapists she was trying to figure out how to work around. And I think we came up with a very good plan to have Ms. Cobb provide therapy that was virtual so that both parents could engage. Also, if both parents had the same therapist, we could eventually move into couples therapy. The biggest concern that I believe led to removal here was the mental health of both parents, the stress of having a baby that was very, very fussy. He had a lot of gastrointestinal issues when this case started. I think all of that is resolved. He's happy, he's healthy, and he's getting a little chubby, which is a good thing because he wasn't eating before. So I do think that the parents are doing everything they need to do. I think the TFF program's working. I want to continue all of the services, but maybe with some communication with the department, some of that 24/7 could be lifted so that Ms. Earhart and little Onyx do not have to go to every doctor's appointment because they need to be supervised, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hillman. What about CASA, Ms. Berlin? Any other recommendations? And also, do you have an opinion about the supervision of the?
I actually agree with Ms. Hellrung on the supervision, not having to be 24/7 so that they don't have to be attending all the doctor's appointments. I will say that my supervisor, Ms. Harding, and I visited about a week ago, and the supervisors are helpful. It's difficult having an infant and being by yourself. So I know Ms. Earhart really enjoys their company, and they help her when she's tired or she needs to rest. So I think it's a really great situation for all of them. But I do agree that Onyx does not need to go out to all these doctor's appointments.
Okay, thank you. That makes perfect sense to me. And I think that that's something that you all, it doesn't sound like the department's necessarily opposed to that either. I think if the night seems to be the primary concern and they could be there at night, but I think, and I don't want today to give you specific times that somebody has to be there, but I think that we can relax those requirements of supervision so that Miss Earhart and the baby don't have to go out to those medical appointments. I think it just kind of makes logical sense that, and if they can be there every day at some point, then that seems like that's helpful too. And it sounds like a really good situation because they're being very supportive and helpful to these parents who are new parents and having to deal with a lot of issues with the baby and with their own mental health issues. So I would, does anybody else want to chime in on anything else? Because it seems to me that I would find that both parents, well, the mother for sure is in compliance. I think that Mr. Lee, it sounds like it's trying to comply and that there's some things that still need to be done. And the reason I just mentioned it that way is that there's continued services that are needed. And I think for both parents, what I'm hearing from everybody, for you all, Ms. Earhart and Mr. Lee, that you all need to, it's really important that you continue the therapy. And I think that, as Ms. Hellrung says, it sounds like there's a good plan for getting you all some virtual therapy that you can do together and to make it a little easier. I appreciate the fact that, Mr. Lee, that you're trying to work and provide, income for your family. That's important too. But the other issues are also important. So it's important to follow up with the therapy. So I will order that services continue pursuant to the Family First program, and that the parents need to follow up with the mental health services, and that the requirement for 24-hour supervision can be relaxed. I'm just going to put it that way. So I'm being deliberately a little bit vague so that you all will have some flexibility in how you do that. And if it's easier for the parents, if you come up with a schedule, that might be a good idea to say, when somebody's going to be there. But as I said, I don't necessarily want to order some specific rigid schedule that you all, have to tie yourself in knots to work around. So, so at this time, we will come back to court October 11th at 10 o'clock. And that'll be for another compliance hearing just to see how things are going. These type of cases are intended to be sort of short term. And so we want to hopefully resolve those. But I think that therapy and mental health services are something that's ongoing, so that it's important to keep consistent with those and have some good recommendations from your therapist about how that therapy is going. And so we'll hopefully get that report the next hearing. So are there any other issues that anybody would like to address that we haven't covered already?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
I saw a lot of people nodding, so I feel like that you all are working together very well and are being able to come up with good plans. Ms. Earhart or Mr. Lee, do you all, either one of you all have any questions at this point?
No, Judge.
No.
All right. Y'all just keep up what you're doing. It sounds like you're doing a good job, and it sounds like you can, Mr. Lee, get with Ms. Salinas about some, rescheduling some of these missed appointments so that she can help you do that if you need to. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Anything from anybody else?
No.
All right. Well, you all keep up the good work, and if nothing further, hear the status of compliance of I believe it's just the mother in this case. Ms. Rios, the caseworker, has advised me that she doesn't believe the mother will be able to attend today. So we are going to go ahead and proceed. So let me ask, let's have announcements starting with Mr. McKeska.
Drake McKeska, attorney for the department.
Kimberly Rios, family-based caseworker.
Carol McKetta, family-based supervisor.
Alani Pearsall, attorney for the mother. Judge, she is currently at work, but I'm ready.
Okay, thank you.
Deborah Fuller, attorney for Grayson, the child, and I'm ready.
Okay, so you may go ahead and question your witness, Mr. McKeska.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Rios, can you please state your name for the record?
Kimberly Rios.
And how are you currently employed?
I am employed with the Department of Family and Protective Services.
Okay. And are you the caseworker assigned to this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you give the court an update on how Ms. Schmidt is doing in her family plan of service?
Yes, so Ms. Schmidt was part of the Texas Family First pilot program, and we were asking that Ms. Schmidt engage in the PAT program, the Parent as Teachers, and currently in that, she's doing very well. I have learned that she is engaging, she's attentive and nurturing to her child and redirects very well. And it is my understanding that that will, from the provider, I'm so sorry, she is doing well enough that they can dismiss the Parents as Teachers program.
Okay. Were there any other services other than Parents as Teachers?
Just that she continue to check in with her adult probations, which she has been doing. She's also drug testing for them, and I have received the reports that she's testing negative for substances. And to also continue to addressing her mental health with MHDD. And she has had some med changes, but she's doing very well on her current medication regimen, and she's managing it very well.
Okay. So how would you classify Ms. Schmidt's overall level of compliance today?
She is in compliance.
Okay. And what is your recommendation for the continuation of this case?
That it be dismissed.
Okay. So you believe that Ms. Schmidt has done everything she needs to do to address the department's concerns, and the court can dismiss the case today?
Yes, sir, I do.
Ask the witness, Judge.
Ms. Pearsall?
Not going to risk saying a word. No question.
That sounds like a very good decision, Ms. Pearsall. Ms. Fuller, do you want to throw anything in this?
No, I don't. I just want to ask Ms. Rios how Grayson's doing, and has she seen any improvement with Grayson or any concerns about Grayson?
During my visits in the home, I have not had concerns. I know with speaking with the PAT provider, that Grayson can be a little on the hyper side, and there are concerns that he could possibly, maybe ADHD. But I know we had an FGC earlier in the week, and we kind of talked about like getting him in school and letting the teachers kind of observe him in that setting and then going from there. But he's doing very well and thriving otherwise.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
What grade would he be in school? Is he?
He will be going into kinder at the Centerpoint ISD.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's a good place to have somebody be able to keep an eye on him. So, all right. So, any recommendations from you, Ms. Fuller?
I'm also in agreement that the case be dismissed. I saw Grayson and the mother last week. She's working very hard. The main issue was MHDD and her being off her meds. And I think now that she's gotten that all straightened out, she redirects him very well. He is a kind of a handful sometimes, and she does a really good job with him. And so I think that she will continue to follow through with MHDD and do whatever she needs to keep CPS out of her life.
Okay, and so she's working, it sounds like she's just recently gotten employment. Is that correct, Ms. Rios?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Who keeps the child while she's working?
So they live very closely to other family members. So her mother is available. She actually lives with her mother. So the maternal grandmother, and then he also has an aunt uncle that live relatively close as well.
Okay, so you feel like there's good arrangements made for his care while she's working?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Okay. All right, so anything from anybody else? Well, this is kind of progress we like to see. So I will find that Ms. Schmidt is in compliance with the plan of service in this case. This case has been monitored through the Family First program, and Ms. Schmidt has successfully completed the requirements of that program. So the court will find that the child is in a safe situation, that there's no further need for continuing services in this case. And so the case will be dismissed. Good job to her.
Kelly Nix, Belong Permanency Specialist.
Ashley Crouch, Belong Permanency Supervisor.
Deborah Fuller, Attorney Ad Litem for the child. Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Nix, can you please state your name for the record?
Kelly Nix.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm a permanency specialist with Belong.
Okay. Are you the permanency specialist assigned to this case?
Yes, I am. Well, I was.
Can you give the court an update on how Sebastian's doing in his placement with his maternal grandmother?
He seems to be doing very well. The last court hearing, the department was granted permanent managing conservator of Sebastian Stewart. And so this is his initial permanency hearing following the final orders. He has been in his grandmother's care the entire case, and that is his intended to be permanent placement. So once we were granted PMC, we began preparing his case for transfer to an adoption worker to finalize his adoption. I think we may be closing in on the 90-day mandatory. We transitioned the case in July, I believe, and I last saw him in about mid-July, just before I handed it off to Miss Valley. He's doing very well. He's a happy little guy. And since we transitioned the case, I believe we received word from Divinity that they finalized Miss Aguilar, that's the caregiver's home study. I know there's an adoption attorney. Mr. Salazar will be facilitating the adoption, and before the transition, everything that's required for the adoption, such as the HESIG and the case reduction, were requested.
Ms. Nix, is the home study or the adoption home study, has that been completed?
Yes, Divinity reported that it was. I didn't receive a copy of it. I don't know if it was provided to Miss Valley yet. I know she'll need that for the subsidy request.
Okay. Are there any other potential roadblocks to the adoption moving forward at this point?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, and do you believe that the permanency goal of relative adoption is in the child's best interest?
Yes.
Okay. Ask the witness, Judge.
Ms. Fuller?
Ms. Nix, has the file been redacted for Ms. Aguilar?
I know that the request was submitted. I don't know if Miss Valley has received it. I think they were going to follow up with the admin and records management after that request was made.
And it's not necessary to have a HESIG because she's the maternal grandmother, correct?
That's true. She can waive it.
Okay. And as far as you know, she has taken very good care of Sebastian and has met all his needs?
Oh, she's doing a great job. He thinks of her as mom.
And you have no concerns at all about this placement?
No, I do not.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
I think that's it. Do you see any current barriers to adoption, Ms. Fuller?
No, Your Honor. I mean, it's going to be she's a straight adopt home. She's not a foster adopt home. There was a citizenship issue, but I think she resolved that and a couple months ago. And so they were just waiting for that to be taken care of so Divinity could get her license. I don't see any issues. I've spoken with Mr. Saldivar. He's handling the adoption, and, he told me just to give him an update after the hearing today.
Okay.
So I don't see any barriers. She's taking great care of this little guy. He's gotten a little rowdier since the beginning of the case. He was kind of pretty mellow in the beginning, but now he's a little bit, a little more active.
Okay.
The daycare, though, they work really well with him. The people at the daycare really love him too. So
you believe this placement in the plan for adoption is in his best interest?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And then Ms. Ebersol, what's CASA's position?
It's in his best interest.
he's doing very well. He's very well bonded with his grandmother and his aunt, 13-year-old aunt that lives in the home also. He's just doing really well.
Okay, great. So do y'all have any idea how much longer it would take to get to have the case ready for adoption? Because the reason I ask is because there's a hearing scheduled for October 11th at 10:30. Which
I would hope it would be done before then, Your Honor. I mean, I think that the redacted file, I mean, if that can get done quickly, I really think it could be done before October 11th. I would hope.
Okay. Okay. Well,
the next hearing is actually not until January, since this was the first permanence review after final order.
Okay.
The next one is actually January 17th at 9:30.
At 1:30. Okay. So let me correct that.
9:30, Judge, 9:30.
9:30. Okay. Let me correct that for the record so that everybody's aware. Our next hearing is January 17th at 9:30. Hopefully, if this case is ready for adoption prior to then, I'm sure Judge Falkenberg can set this earlier than that, and I'm sure everybody hopes that will happen. But we'll leave that date up there just in case we need it. So, anything else anybody would like to add? Sounds like this one's on the downhill slide in a good way. So that's great to know. So at this time, the court will continue the child in his current placement and will approve the permanency plan as adoption by the current placement. Court finds that it's in the best interest of the child to continue that placement and that that placement is meeting all of his needs at this time. As I said, the next hearing will be January 17th at 9:30. That's the next permanency hearing. But as I said, if it's ready for adoption.
Also have to ask the gentleman behind you if he's going to participate in the hearing to take his hat off.
I will note for the record that this case, because we are recording, I haven't called the case yet, but this case was originally set, let's see, July 27th with Judge Falkenberg. He realized he had a conflict and he reset this case for today's date. Everybody should have noticed that was reset. Okay, I see Mr. Weatherby now. Department of Family and Protective Services versus Lisa Medlock and William Shipman.
Yes, Judge Drake McCaska, attorney for the department.
Jimmy Dresden Mitchell, investigation supervisor.
Carol McKenna, family-based supervisor.
Stacy Turner, investigator for the department.
Maria Salinas, family-based caseworker.
Samantha Winky, family-based caseworker.
Okay, thank you all.
Richard Sotomayor, attorney for the father, Mr. Shipman. Mr. Shipman, will you unmute and announce, please?
Hey, how you doing?
You have to say your name.
Oh, William Shipman,
Father.
father of Braxton and Liam.
Charles Weatherby, attorney for Ms. Medlock. Ms. Medlock, would you unmute and announce, please?
Lisa Medlock, mother of all of the kids.
Cheryl Sione, attorney ad litem for the children.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I think we get everybody.
Lauren Brinch DePelchin, BSFT family therapist.
Okay.
Michelle Tavini, program coordinator with DePelchin.
Okay.
Yes, Judge. Well, actually, we do have an agreement, Your Honor.
Okay,
and just
good.
for clarification,
okay.
This case was filed under the Texas Families First pilot program. So it mirrors the court ordered services, but we have the additional benefit of the evidence-based services that DePelchin provides.
Okay, that's great. All right, so do you want to first set forth for the record what your agreement is?
Yes, Your Honor. So the parties have agreed that Ms. Medlock and Mr. Shipman will participate in MHDD services and follow any and all recommendations from those services. They will engage in brief strategic family therapy with Ms. Brinch through DePelchin. That includes some in-home parenting programs and some individual and family therapies. And then in addition to those services, Judge, the parents have agreed to have the children attend swimming lessons so we can address those concerns as well. And the swimming lessons will be provided for and paid for by the department.
Sounds like a benefit for everybody. Is that pretty much the complete list of services you're going to be providing?
It is, Your Honor. The family plan of services has already been completed and was filed with the court on 7/26/2023.
Okay. All right, so let me just ask, and I will ask the parents directly, but I guess Mr. Saldivar, on behalf of Mr. Shipman, is that your understanding of what your clients agreed to?
Yes, Your Honor, and if we can do any of those services at the MHMR, I believe my client would prefer that, unless he says otherwise, but that sums up our agreement.
Okay, I think I understood that, and I'll come back to it. But Mr. Weatherby, what about on behalf of your client? Is that your understanding of the agreement?
That's our understanding, Your Honor.
Okay, and Ms. Sione?
Yes, Your Honor, that is my understanding.
And do you believe that these services would be in the best interest of the children?
I do.
Okay, so let me ask you, I'll start with you, Ms. Medlock. Do you understand what services Mr. McKeska is describing that you need to participate in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what I will say to both of you for the MHDD services, it's really important that you follow through with that. And I think I heard Mr. Saldivar saying that you would prefer to go through them. And it's really important that you're consistent with your meetings with them. Those need to be consistent. Other thing I will say to both of you is that, and where did Mr. Shipman go?
Our kids walked outside real quick. Wait, I'm back inside with my sister.
I'm right here.
He's right here. He can hear you.
Okay.
I didn't catch what you said, but I'm right here now.
I know, that's the problem. So what I was going to say is that I just recently had another case where the father participated in this program through DePelchin with the family therapy and the parenting, the in-home services. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same thing that you all are being offered, but this parent was very much opposed to any kind of interference in his life at the beginning. And we successfully closed that case. And he said that was the best thing he had ever done, and that he thought that helped him more than anything. So I just want you all to keep an open mind about the services that are being offered. And they're designed to be helpful to you, not as punishment. They're designed to help you so that we can close this case and all of us can be out of your lives. So I just want you to understand that. So do you understand what it is you're being expected to do, Mr. Shipman?
Yes, as far as me and the attorney have talked, yeah, I've understand it. I'm not sure what's going on with that other guy, but because we was here before whenever we first signed in or whatever, it said something about adoption. We're not okay with that.
Babe, that was a different court hearing. I've already told you that.
Well, I don't know. She said just a minute ago.
No, we signed in early, like at 1:30, and it put us in another court hearing.
Oh, no.
And then y'all put us
we're
in
not
the
even anywhere close to talking about adoption. That was a completely different case and a different child. And that is not being entertained whatsoever in this case at this time. So, and if it ever were to be, you would be formally notified, and your attorneys would be talking to you about that, and everybody would be talking to you about that. That is not what we're doing today. Okay. So just put that out of your mind, and
okay.
Just make sure that you sign into the hearing that you're hearing. Okay. Because it's confusing. It can be confusing. So
yeah.
We already have started MHDD. I have an appointment Monday, and then he's on his second appointment tomorrow at 11. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So other than that, what we've talked about, is there anyone want to put on it, have any testimony presented about anything? Mr. McKeska, I'll ask you first, or you've made your announcement on behalf of the department as to what your understanding is.
Yes, Judge. Yeah, we reached the agreement for the services, and as I stated before, the family plan is on file, so we're ready to move forward.
Okay. Anyone else want to add anything before the court makes a ruling?
Just for my client, I think he's willing to do the services. They want the goal is they want to alleviate the concerns of the department and get them out of their lives as soon as possible. And
Okay.
so I believe that this plan can achieve that. And so I believe we're all on the same page. And even though Mr. Shipman missed our little oral agreement that we put on the record, he is in agreement. We've discussed it. So I believe that we will have a successful case here pretty soon.
Okay, and that's what we all want to see happen, and that's why I brought up this other case that I had where similar services were offered, and it was very, very successful. And I think that what we can do with these kind of services is that they're intense, and so they accomplish a lot in a short period of time. Now, MHDD services may be something you have to follow up with after everybody is gone from this case. That may be something that you can do on your own later. But I think these other services are intended to really help you quickly and make sure that y'all are on the right track so that we can successfully close this case as soon as possible. So with that, I will just say that the court will adopt and approve the agreement as entered into by the parties in this case. The court finds that the proper family plan of service has been filed with the court under the Family First pilot program, and that all conditions of that program have been properly met. The court will order the services as set forth in that agreement. So if there's any question about any of those services to the parents, what you all need to do is you've got a lawyer, you both got lawyers, your children have a lawyer, you've got a lot of caseworkers and providers here. So there's a lot of people you can ask questions of if you run into questions or run into, confusion or a conflict, an appointment date or something like that. Just make sure that you talk to somebody and that you can get your questions answered. Meanwhile, we'll be back in court on October 20th at 9:30. And that will be to just see how everything's going. If everything's going well, the case could be resolved at that time. Or we can reevaluate, what else needs to be done. Is there anything else? Anybody have anything to report? I know the case just started, so I'm not sure that, the ad litem would have anything to report yet. But if anybody does have anything they want to add, this would be the time to do it. Anything?
Can I ask a question? I was just wondering when the services are planning to start, like the swim lessons for the kids.
I don't know the answer to that, but let's see who can answer that.
Judge, I can. We do need the court order ordering the department to provide that service, since it's not something that we normally contract for.
Right.
So once we get that order, we'll be able to go ahead and set that up.
Okay. And so what he's saying is that normally the department doesn't pay for people's swimming lessons, but if I order that from the court, then they'll be able to pay for that and get it set up. Who's going to be the main contact person from the department with the parents? Is that Miss Salinas?
Judge, it'll be Samantha Winky.
Okay, I see. Right, so I think Ms. Winky, as soon as you get as this order is filed, make sure you get with the parents and give them that, information in terms of the date when to start. But Ms. Winky is the one you need to call first if you've got a question. And then I assume those in-home services, somebody from DePelchin will be reaching out to you to set those up. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry. I've never looked into the swimming lessons. Like, I don't know how long it normally takes something like that to be taught. And I'm just hoping that everything gets brought in with that too.
Well, I'm not an expert on swim lessons. And so I think that's just something that the people who are providing the swim lessons are going to have to discuss with you. There's all kinds of different swim lessons for different levels of swimmers. And so, again, that's just something you're going to have to discuss with them.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Sorry about the question.
No, that's fine. It's always better to ask. And
are we gonna get like a list of phone numbers and stuff attached to the court order so we know who to call and who to ask questions to? Because the only person I have's number is Stacy, and I don't remember her name. She's the one that set up the family-based services.
Well, Ms. Winky, I believe we'll get a list of numbers to you, and that won't be attached to the court order, but it will be something that's provided, and it might be attached to the family plan of service, I'm thinking. Can you answer that for us, Ms. Winky?
I'll give her a call after. Yes, ma'am. I'm going to give her a call after this court hearing. So
Okay. That's great. I think I just lost Miss Winky's sound, but she'll give y'all a call. If y'all will just hang around a little bit after this hearing, she'll give you a call when we're done. Okay. And you know, ask her whatever you need to. And if you aren't sure about certain things, we'll make a list. Okay. Make a list of questions and make a list of the appointments you make and phone calls you make and that kind of thing. That'll help us all.
Judge, I'll also be calling them right after court, so I might give Miss Winky some time for the services to begin.
Okay.
We need to just do the intake, and so I will be contacting them to let them know the process, let them know who will be reaching out to them. Michelle will actually be doing their intake on this case, so intake will probably happen next week, and then the week after services should begin, depending on everybody's schedules. So I'll give you guys a call after court as well.
Okay, that's great. This is our very first hearing, so this is the time where everybody's just kind of trying to figure out what they need to do next and who they need to contact. So these are important questions and important information. So they will give you a call if you don't hear from somebody and you're not sure who to call. Either call Miss Winky or call one of your attorneys, and they'll be able to find that information out to you. And another thing I will say is this Miss Sione is the attorney who was appointed to represent your children. So she will probably be contacting you at some point to see about setting up a time to just meet with your kids, you know, so she can say hi to them.
Judge, I did have the opportunity to meet with them.
Okay, wonderful.
Previously
That's
scheduled.
great. That's great. So you already know who she is, and that's her job is just to talk to the kids. So. All right, well, sounds like everybody's got a good plan, and we just need to kind of pin down the details of it and get started as soon as you can, and we'll resolve this as quickly as possible.